wants to find their seats, we're going to get started in just a few minutes, or a few seconds actually. Good morning. Welcome everyone to our fourth Beautiful You event. We are so thankful that you are here, either in person or those of you who are joining us online. I know there's hundreds of streamings going on right now in churches and homes, and we are so thankful for you. Honor him. We want his glory to be seen, and we want to give you an inside look. Businesses and people who have given generously to make this event possible. I want to thank our volunteers. We have a team of amazing women who come together as sisters and as friends and as basically party planners and event planners for the kingdom. And they have pulled this event off once again. I want to thank our development team and Carla Damiano, who has tirelessly given her heart and soul to this event as well. I want to thank our speakers, either in person or on the videos that you're going to get to see. You are in for an unbelievable message and an unbelievable treat. Brave speakers of today. That does not include me. So thank you. Thank you to River's Edge Church. Not only has River's Edge given us a place to birth the mission, but they have given the event venue for today. So we want to thank River's Edge Church. And thank you to you. Thank you for giving time out of your Saturday morning. Whether you're in your pajamas, snuggled up on your couch, or whether you're here in person, we are so grateful for you. I want to note that there is one change to our program event today. Kelly Butcher will actually be standing in for Bev Shipley. Bev needed to be committed to her family today, and so that is a change that's going to be happening on your program. This pandemic has challenged everybody, and we have learned to pivot just like everyone else. So we're so thankful that we are learning along with the rest of the world how to do things different. So today is a little bit different. Usually we have a couple of 100, 200, 300 people gathered. We have a smaller venue here, but we are so thankful to give this pivoting event and learn along with the rest of the world how to do things in this year of pandemic. And we are going to be able to reach more people because of that. So we thank the Lord for the ability to pivot in this season. Let's open in prayer. Jesus, we honor you for this day. We honor who you are. We just speak the bold name of Jesus, that you alone would be glorified through the videos, through the in-person gathering, through the virtual gathering in homes, that, Lord, chains would be broken, that eyes would be opened, that shame would be just demolished, and freedom would come. So, Jesus, do your thing. We love you. Amen. This year's theme is called I Carry Her Story. And it's very interesting. In my briefcase, I hold this folder. And it's full of art, emails, testimonies, cards, letters, and different things that survivors have either given me or one of our staff members through the 7 years that we've been holding this mission to end exploitation and make restoration possible for one more girl. So on the hard days when I'm throwing my hands up in the air wondering, like, God, is this even worth it? I open up this folder and I read stories. And it gives me the heart and the courage to remember that she's worth it. That all of it is worth it. Because her story has changed from a destiny of brokenness to the possibility of freedom. From darkness to light shining. From hell to heaven. From a life on her own to a life of exploring what it means to know Jesus. And so we carry those stories. And oftentimes when I go and speak, I share those stories. But today you're in for a treat. Because the story that you're going to get to hear is from an actual survivor herself. We're going to hear 3 parts of her story through this morning, and the first one is her childhood story. Will you watch with me?
I grew up with 2 parents, and they both worked, had good prominent jobs in the community. I went to school every day. I graduated from college. I graduated from high school. We went to church on Sundays. We were basically like the all-American family, if there is such a thing as an all-American family. And I guess image was everything to my parents. It was what was portrayed on the outside, but when you got behind closed doors, it was a very different feel. My earliest memories are of my parents having domestic violence incidents, just a lot of anger and I don't know what the word is. Anger and distrust and fear. When I was about 7, my mom and my dad were in the middle of one of their giant, fights, if you want to call it. And both my parents had multiple affairs. And my dad had currently left and was having an affair, and my mom had a relationship with another man, and that other man began sexually abusing me, and essentially grooming me, and eventually began for drugs and money. And while this was going on, I was still going to school, I was still participating in activities, I was in sports, all of the things that normal everyday children do. When my mom found out eventually, and instead of protecting me or doing something about it, she decided that that was a good way to make money, and so she continued selling me for money, and all the while this was happening, to the outside world, we were still being portrayed as this perfect family. We still went to church, we still participated in activities, all the things that normal kids do. I still did all of those things. And so I guess I wanted somebody to hear and somebody to know what was happening, but I was told, I was threatened multiple times that if I did tell, that I would be killed, that my sister would be killed. I was told that nobody would believe me, and I was also told that it was normal. And so from the age of about 7 until 24, I was trafficked by my mom, but primarily my mom. And I did try to tell on a few occasions, but because my parents were in unity, and my mom had a good job and we were a middle class family, people didn't believe me, and the police literally told me that I was crazy. I was told that if I just obeyed my parents, then this stuff wouldn't happen to me. I was just returned back home by the police each time. And yet somehow I managed to go to school every day and I managed to graduate and I got my college degree. When I finally did get up the courage to leave, I didn't know how to do life, any part of life.
Welcome to her story. Because of what you just heard, you're going to carry stories. And we thank you for coming in to gather, to take it in, and to learn how to carry her story. I've been carrying those stories for about 7 years, and it's beautiful because we don't carry those stories alone. There is an army of people who have been called in different ways to fight the injustice of sex trafficking. You're about to meet one of those people. His name is Mike Furjak. He is amazing. Oftentimes when you learn about these stories, you can get really angry at men because oftentimes men are the ones who have been purchasing other women for sex. Not always the case, but usually the case. About 7 years ago, I met Mike Furjak. And this is when I was just beginning. I was a knee-knocking speaker, trembling every time I got on stage, especially when I shared a stage with him. You can read about his bio in your program notes. You can find out about him online. But if I had to describe Mike, I would say he is the William Wilberforce of our day in Iowa. William Wilberforce was the one who helped abolish slavery in the 1800s, and this man has tirelessly fought for the cause. What you see on the screen is who he is in real life. He fights for justice. He has worked in the most vile of situations and continued to keep his heart human in the process. So I welcome you to learning from him about how he carries stories of survivors.
The topic, obviously, what we want to talk about is human trafficking. And a lot of people have a couple misconceptions about what human trafficking actually is. Some people think it's something new. It's not. It's a new name for something that's been going on for a very long time. But once it's happened, once it's transacted and it started, then there's the cover-up, there's the hide it. And we have different forms of trafficking around the world. The one that you see glorified in the movies all the time is what I would call organized crime or pimp type operations. The one that's least known is one that we more recently discovered, and that's called family control. And that's exactly what it sounds like, family members selling family members. And unfortunately, it's one of the more difficult types to discover, because when you think about the movie Taken, when you think about anything that you've seen on TV, a drama about human trafficking, what's the central point of action? Somebody gets taken and hidden away and they're missing. In family control trafficking, nobody's missing. That little boy or that little girl, that young girl, that young woman, that young man, they're exactly where they're supposed to be. They're at the softball game. They're at the pool. They're in school. They went to church. Nobody's missing. So what are you so worried about? Well, it's what happens when you're not around. It's what happens on that weekend where we went to visit a relative in Chicago, when in fact you were being sold in Chicago. It's what happened when you went to Omaha to see the zoo, but you weren't at the zoo. You were being sold again. And then when you come back, you don't tell anybody. And why wouldn't you tell anybody? Because the people in family control human trafficking are the people that you love. They are your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, your aunt, your uncle. And they've all told you that if you tell, then they're going to split us up. We're going to go to jail. You never see mom again, or dad. And I can promise you that that's a tough, tough wall to knock down, if you ever do. I would say it's one of the types of human trafficking that yields the lowest amount of disclosure, as opposed to a pimp situation or a gang situation or other. In the United States, it was 2012 when we woke up to the fact that, that's not prostitution, that's human trafficking. And we defined it in law as different than prostitution. The administration at the time made it one of the top 5 law enforcement priorities in the country. Top 5 law enforcement for all law enforcement throughout the United States. And that's where you saw legislation pass. That's where you saw funding happen for task force operations and organizations, for training for people who are going to care for these people, such as Wings of Refuge. And that was a good start. But like anything, there's a momentum that has to be maintained, or otherwise it falls off. And by that falling off, I mean that the biggest thing that we had to overcome, and we are still trying to overcome yet today, is getting the average citizen on the street to understand that this is here. This is not that third world country that I talked about before. This is not where it is ingrained in their culture. This is the United States, and this is Iowa. The main problem is when you hear the survivor story, it sounds unbelievable. Now, my background is law enforcement. And in law enforcement, and I'm old, so we were taught, get the facts. Just the facts. Don't confuse me with feelings and attitudes and emotions. Well, getting the facts from a survivor of human trafficking is much more difficult. The facts are there, the facts are real. I don't suppose anybody that sees this is going to think that somebody in Iowa would build a dungeon under their house and maintain a 17-year-old girl there and use her and then sell her to others. In rural Iowa, would you believe that somebody used their own child as bait to bring another child in that was ultimately trafficked? Does that happen in Iowa? Aren't we Iowa nice? We don't do that. But what you have is that naive belief, and it's the perfect cover for the trafficker, because they're going to tell and have told. Survivors will tell you, I will tell you. First thing you hear is they're not going to believe you if you tell somebody. And unfortunately, and I say this as a member of the thin blue line, law enforcement has been told but didn't believe it, which is exactly what the trafficker told them would happen. And so now our own ignorance has emboldened the trafficker and made them a stronger figure rather than a weaker one. Now, there is training. State of Iowa, its Department of Public Safety has the Office of Combat Human Trafficking. They also have a person there designated as the Human Trafficking Coordinator. And their job is to help coordinate a statewide response. It's not just the state patrol's job, it's not the DCI's job, it's all law enforcement's job, but they need a catch point. They need a central point to bring information in and to put information out, and that's what they do. And so they've had success. They've had success. But when you stop and you visit with people like you just met in this clip, you find there's a lot of them out there that tried it and didn't make it past the first step. So what I'm suggesting is the continuation and the intensifying of law enforcement training on human trafficking. I've had chiefs and sheriffs who never said to me, I don't want to do those kind of cases. I've had them say to me, I don't have the manpower. I don't have the money. I don't have the budget to do those things. And this is why we need to be re-examining this whole idea of regional task forces, blending the resources, and including advocates, including places like Wings of Refuge, so that when we are lucky enough to have a recovery, there's a place for them to go, where we know they'll be safe, where they know they'll be safe. At the local levels, you've got something like 900 law enforcement agencies in the state of Iowa. And that's from the one marshal in town to hundreds of thousands of people on your police department or law enforcement agency. How it works for them is basically when we find it, we address it. I've had some people say to me, well, take me out right now and show me a trafficking case. Well, how am I going to do that? My point is this. Is it possible that you as a patrol officer will see it? Yes. Question is, will you recognize it? Have you been trained to understand the story you're going to hear? But more likely, I believe that this is an intelligence-led policing operation. So what we need are analysts. Like in the Department of Public Safety, they have analysts. We need to increase that effort so that somebody's out there looking at what's in Iowa, because I'm not going to, but I could name sites that you could go to and find out who's for sale in your neighborhood. It's just that simple. We need law enforcement eyes on that to make it happen. And again, local officers, I believe, overall, are willing to do it, but sometimes they can't get past their own self-doubt or their own doubt of what they're hearing, because that just doesn't fit what happens in small-town Iowa. Well, I think you just heard a story about that. So, I want to make a comment about, people ask this question a lot. What should I be looking for to see that this person is involved in human trafficking? Well, what are the signs? Well, there are, if you go online, there are lots of lists and lots of people who suggest lots of things. From a practical point of experience, I would tell you that they have no one certain behavior. They have no one certain look. They don't all respond the same way. It has a lot to do with how much trauma, how long they've been, what dangers they actually have faced, what they have witnessed. So to say that they're going to act a specific way, the last list I happened to look at would probably fit, but it would also fit most teenagers because of the anxiety and the angst and the doubt and all these things. So what I'll tell you is this: if it doesn't look right, say something. Don't be the one that makes the decision that this is nothing. Turn it in. Make the call. I always want you to call 911 first, because they are there, they are on scene, and if it's something that needs to be addressed quickly, they can do it. But I also want you to call the national hotline, and you'll get that number later. That hotline is manned 24/7. And I know what that hotline does, because when I was with the state, I was the person in Iowa that they called when they received a report. And it didn't matter whether it was 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday or the middle of Wednesday. It didn't matter. Because as soon as I was done with them, what that person's responsibility is to notify the jurisdiction that the report's coming from. And I did not wait until 8 o'clock in the morning or the next Monday for the chief to come in. Whoever the officer in charge was at 2 o'clock on Sunday morning is who I talked to about that case, because we never know how much time we're going to have. Some of these things don't require an immediate reaction. Some of them are a real intelligence operation, but some of them do. Because if you don't act now, they're going to be gone, or something worse is going to happen. So my first suggestion to you is simply this: if it doesn't look right, make the call. The worst that could happen is you'll be wrong. So what? There's a young woman who some time ago benefited from someone saying, hey, that doesn't look right. If you're familiar with the truck stop at the intersection of I-90 and I-35 up on the other side of the Minnesota border, there was a woman there. She's 19 years of age, from Iowa. And because a truck driver noticed something unusual and made a call, and law enforcement responded, she was recovered. The same thing happened to another girl from Iowa in Virginia. She was gone for 18 days. She was, by her own account, sold multiple times during that period of time. Ate or was given food, which consisted basically of dry cereal, about 5 times, and tortured in ways that I will not describe here. But another truck driver, and you know, truck drivers tend to get a bad rap when you start talking about it. They're always kind of the bad guy. The truck drivers, to me, are an informed, and we closely call Truckers Against Trafficking. And we have truck drivers all over the nation now who have been trained on human trafficking. And this truck driver had been. But he was standing there minding his own business when he watched the camper pull up, and the driver got out, but he got out and he locked the door with people still in it. And he said, Well, so he's just watching, he's just waiting for his truck to get done. And then the guy comes back out of the plaza, the driver, with another guy. And then they open the side door of the camper, of the RV. And there is another young woman being held up because she's been injured so badly that she can't stand on her own. He just sold her to him. That truck driver could have said, well, you know what, I don't know what's going on here. This is none of my business. I don't want to get sued. All the things that we all worry about and we all think about. But you know what? He chose to do something. And what he did was call the police. And as it happened, there were 2 state troopers in the area and they responded immediately, followed by 2 deputy sheriffs. That young girl was recovered and is back with her family. And those 2 individuals from Iowa are serving lengthy federal prison sentences now. So don't be afraid to say something. Make that call to 911, and I'm going to tell you right now, sometimes 911's not going to take much interest. We'll just be honest about it. A little hint on talking to 911. Don't tell them what you think is going on. Don't call and say, hey, you know what? I think there's human trafficking going on in Central Park. Because then all you're going to get is somebody asking, well, why do you think it's human trafficking? It's going to turn into this debate. What I'd like you to do is tell them what you see. Tell them what you see is happening. Well, he hit her and pushed her in a car. They got in a blue Chevy and she was fighting. It looked like she was fighting. That will get you a fast law enforcement response. There's not going to be a debate. So what I'm asking for you to do is help us get the officers there in as timely a way as possible. That time that you spent discussing what you know about human trafficking on the phone was wasted because it's not going to help anything. Call 911, tell them what you saw, let them take it from there. When you're done with that call, that's when I want you to call the national hotline. Because somebody from the state is going to call and follow up on that call. So not only do they have your call now, they've got a call from somebody in the Department of Public Safety saying, hey, we have this report. You need to take a look and tell us what you need. One of the other questions that is asked often is, how do you keep somebody out of this? How do you prevent it from happening to them? Well, as I've mentioned to you, there are at least 3 known forms of human trafficking: gang, family, and pimp. Now, of the three, how do you suppose you can protect somebody in the family situation? Because, as I said, it can be relatives and family members that are actually doing this. The answer to this question is more simple than you might think. It's called education. Back in 2004, the state of Iowa created what is now known as the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And we joined that task force in 2004, and I am still a member of that task force. And the first thing we did was go into schools and educate children at age-appropriate levels about what could possibly happen on the internet. What could possibly be the reason this person wants to know where you live? What person wants a picture of you? And to kind of let you know that they're not all really telling you what's true. We need to do the same thing, in my opinion, with human trafficking. It has got to be changed from what it looks like now, this exotic thing that only happens in the far-flung corners of the world. This is happening here. It's happening in Iowa. It's happening in Ames. It's happening in little towns throughout Iowa. You can pull up a map from the state of Iowa from, I'm blanking on who made it. I believe it was Department of Public Safety. But it shows you there isn't a quadrant of our state that doesn't have a history of cases in it. And I suspect that for one in every case known, there are many more that are not. So raising our awareness is the best way to help prevent somebody from coming into this situation. And like I said, I'm old. I've been in the business of law enforcement for 40 years, in one shape or another. And I got into the task force about internet crimes against children in 2014. And that I started to get a sense. And I thought in my career I had seen the bottom 3 times. I thought on patrol, doesn't get any worse than this. The things you see as a patrol officer. Then I got on the task force. And it was like, impossible. There really aren't people like that. The Attorney General asked me to take on the Human Trafficking Task Force. And there again, for the 3rd time, I was proven wrong as far as seeing the bottom. That's why I want you to think about these survivors. Their experience is unlike, and I will say this every day, is unlike any other crime victim that I know. And I've done everything from parking tickets to homicides and everything in between. This person's experience is different. Their story is going to sound different. Their reaction is going to be different. Everything is going to be different about this one. But I've also seen the damage that human trafficking does. And places like Wings of Refuge, when we do get a survivor, and it's their job to help them on that trip, on that journey back to normal. Some of them never make it. Some of them go back. In fact, the national average of running back to the street is 6 to 8 times because this has been so, and I don't like the term brainwashing, but it fits here. It has been so totally ingrained that there's only one person in the world that you can believe, and that is your trafficker. And that's something I tell everybody. Think of somebody in your life who's never told you a lie. Well, mom and dad is out because there's the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus. Sorry if the young kids are in the audience. Who in your life hasn't told you some kind of a falsehood? Now ask a survivor if their trafficker ever told them a lie other than what it was to get them in the first place. Because every time they told you you'd get beat, you got beat. Every time you got starved, you got starved. They don't lie. And that is the power and that is the control that they have over these people. So imagine yourself in the worst of situations that you've ever seen in your life, and you're not even close. So what keeps me going is that I think of two particular cases. The first survivor that I ever met, and a survivor who brought to me 30 years after the fact. And it was a story, like I tell you, it sounds crazy. That's the word, crazy. The reason she got to me was that other agents from other agencies had already talked to her, and then finally they knew that I'm a soft touch. And they said, Mike, try to get her off her back. So I listened to her. We talked for 5 hours. And I shouldn't say we talked, she talked for 5 hours. I asked her one question at the beginning and I answered one question at the end. And her physical behavior was stunning, because at the beginning she was drilling me. She was eyes on fire, trying to burn through you. And when she saw I wasn't going to say, that didn't happen, your attention, everything she'd been told before. Then she started to soften, and pretty soon her head is down and her tears are falling on the floor. And at the very end, she said, I have one question for you, and she asked me. And the question was, do you think I'm crazy? And I said, no, I think you're hurt. So that's what keeps me going. There are a lot of hurt people out there that I think we can do better for. I think we want to do better for. And believe me, I'm not throwing rocks at anybody. Everybody's doing the best with what they got. That's the equation that has to change. They need more.
I'm so thankful for people like Mike who are on the front lines. After today, sometimes people think, oh, what you guys do is really hard work. What the law enforcement individuals and task forces do is really hard work. I think all of it is really hard work when you're dealing in the world of human trafficking. So I'm just so thankful for him and the people who are on the front lines. He mentioned the National Human Trafficking Hotline, and so I just want to have you guys take your phones out right now and add the number to your phone if it isn't in there already. It's really easy to remember. Is it in our program? Oh, it's in our program, but you can still put it in your phone right now. For those of you who don't have a program, the number is 888-3737-888. And he also mentioned, a list online of signs to look for besides just identifying like, hey, that doesn't look right. If you go to our website and I believe it's the resources tab, there's a list of signs that you can familiarize yourself with. So I wanted to quick say that before I introduce myself and before I forgot. But my name is Kelly Butcher, and for about 5 years before I transitioned fully to the development side of things, so a little bit more behind the scenes. Admittedly, I am more of a writer than a speaker, so thank you for bearing with me this morning. So we heard from Mike Furjak about the realities of human trafficking, and we now understand that people are being trafficked here in Iowa, and that survivors need a place to go when they finally escape from the nightmare. And that's where Wings of Refuge comes in. The question we hear the most from people is, how did the survivors connect with Wings of Refuge? So they were in their trafficking situation, they finally are able to escape, and then what? We collaborate with the National Human Trafficking Hotline, local crisis lines, domestic violence shelters, jails, hospitals, and other restoration homes, both locally and nationally. We will often hear from an advocate first, but sometimes the women find us through a Google search and fill out our application on the website or call our admission line. Reaches out to her to better understand her situation and what her needs are. We are not a crisis shelter. Instead, our lane is long-term restoration. So what that means is, instead of offering a bed for 30 days, we offer a home for as long as it takes. So during the intake process, our program director will assess if the potential participant is ready to commit to her own recovery. If she's not ready, that is okay. It takes a lot of heart and soul work to be ready to get to that place, because when you enter into your recovery, you come face to face with the trauma that you've endured. We know that as a defense mechanism, when we go through hard things, our brain just kind of shuts off a little bit so that we can get through the moment and get to the next day. And so when you enter into recovery, you now have to process the memories that you've tried so hard to escape from. That's just the way that our brains and our bodies work. So that's why we know that it's okay if you're not there yet, and we then work with our connections to get her to a safe place. The reason why we do this is also to avoid disrupting the women who are already in the home, who have committed to their own recovery and are making incredible strides and progress. Having women come and go all the time, if we were more of a crisis place, is just more disruptive in a home that's long-term. So if she is ready to commit to her own recovery and is willing to come to our program after learning about it and reading about the expectation, that she has that up front. So in her life, she has been manipulated and deceived. She's been told one thing and then something else happens. It's kind of this give and take. And we just want to be upfront and transparent with her, because that's what she deserves, and that allows her to make an informed choice. So we lay out our handbook, we ask her if she has questions, and we want her to know what it is that she's going to expect, because that's fair. So if she is ready, she goes through and she says, yes, I'd like to come to Wings. We prepare for her arrival. We set up her room, we fluff the pillows, we stuff a cute tote bag with toothpaste and toothbrush and shampoo and conditioner, other toiletries, hairbrush, a pretty journal. They're fun things that just make the transition a little bit easier. We make a welcome poster, we bake cookies, and we anticipate when she's going to get there. I wish you could all see the look on her face when we give her the house tour and then we show her to her room. If Bev were here this morning, this is one of her favorite stories, and I can't tell it because it's not one of my stories, but she just loves showing the women to their room. Often there are happy tears, surprised laughter, or content silence as her new safe reality sets in. We've heard comments like, "This house makes me feel like a princess. I get my own room, and I don't understand why people who don't even know me would be so kind to me." The first 30 days for a new participant focuses on establishing safety and allowing them to get a feel for the program so they can decide, yes, this is still a good fit for me and where I'm at in my journey. It includes a lot of adjusting to the schedule and getting to know her housemates, getting a baseline of how her physical body is doing by going to a general physician, a dentist, an eye doctor, places like that, and slowing down. Her brain and body have been in survival mode up to this point. And so everything is, and it's important that she has the opportunity to just be for a few weeks. Making the choice to come to Wings of Refuge can feel like a leap of faith for survivors. And it takes a lot of courage for her to leave everything she has ever known and come to a home filled with people she doesn't know and a life that she doesn't understand, and also has no reason to trust up to this point in her life. I'm excited for you to hear and, more importantly, understand what got her to the point of taking that leap of faith in this next chapter of her story.
So after I finally got up the courage to leave my family, I was trying to do the whole adult thing. And I had a couple people who helped me get an apartment. I was trying to live independently in that apartment, but I didn't know how to do basic things like do my laundry or cook or do any of that because I wasn't taught any of that growing up. And emotionally, I was a disaster, to put it lightly. I ended up hospitalized like 12 times in a year with multiple suicide attempts, and I was just in a very hard place. And so by the time I decided to come to Wings, I was pretty much at the end. I felt like if I didn't go to Wings, if Wings didn't help me fix myself, quote unquote, there was no hope for me because I was trying and nothing was working. I didn't know how to do relationships. I didn't know how to do basic things that normal adults know how to do. And so when I came to Wings, Wings offered me a place to just be. That's kind of how I felt at the beginning. Like the first 90 days are very, I don't know what the word is, quiet maybe, because there's a lot of restrictions and whatnot, but that's just so that you can just be. And so I was finally given this opportunity to have a safe place where I could try and learn all these things that I never learned growing up. And so I think the biggest thing that Wings offered me was a safe place to be. And in that safe place, I was able to work on not only the everyday life things like cooking and cleaning and doing my laundry, but also the emotional things and the trauma that I experienced through the trafficking, and just the life that I lived for so many years. So by the time I came to Wings, I had been out of my trauma for 2 years, I believe, about 2 years, maybe 3. So I had been trying for quite a while to get my life together and it wasn't working. And so Wings offered me a place or a chance to meet new people. It offered me an opportunity to make new memories. And it was like a place where I got to meet people who had been through similar things that I had been through. And so I think like that gives a person a little bit of hope, because it's like, okay, well, you're not the only one who's been through it, and you're not the only one who's experiencing these kind of things. I also got to learn the truth about who Jesus is, and I got to learn the way that God views me instead of the way that I was told from very young of who I was. I got to learn the truth about who I was. I got to learn the impact of having a relationship with God instead of just you go to church and that's just so that everybody can see that you're going to church, but that there's value in that relationship that you can have with God. We also did a number of like book studies. I got to learn about boundaries and just like got to explore a number of different topics and like how to discern safe people, and then also studies on shame and then also like the ultimate journey, where I got to learn the truth and how to give myself what I need instead of waiting for somebody else to give me it. And I guess it's not easy to be at Wings. I think sometimes people think, well, you don't have to work or you don't have to do any of the like other adulting things that normal people have to do, but your job while you're at Wings is to work on yourself. And it's to continue to grow and change and become the person that God has created you to be. And so, like, you're putting your trust into something that you don't actually know if it's gonna work, but knowing that if it does work, your life is going to be so much better than it ever was before.
My heart just swells with pride when I hear her story, because I've seen the hard work that she's done and the commitment that she made to herself. So when I knew I was going to have to follow up that video, I knew I was going to struggle a little bit. So you heard a little bit about what her life in the home looked like. She shared a little bit about some of the things that she did, but I'd love to give you an inside look into what a typical day at the Safe Home might look like, and I think it might surprise you. So when I get to the house, this is what I might see on my schedule for the day. And I want you to know that the names that I use are not of any current or previous participants. So pray and prep for programming and one-on-ones that day, read documentation and staff communication, and administer all prescribed medications, so morning, noon, night, anytime in between. At 8:30, programming for the day starts with devotions. At 9, morning workout with our health coach. At 10, Rachel meets with her mental health counselor. At noon, we have lunch. From 1 to 3, there's programming, and Paige has a doctor's appointment. At 4, there's life skills. At 5, we'll eat supper together. From 6 to 8, there's free time and an internet safety class. At 8, we'll do a mindfulness craft for relaxation, and the rest of the evening is free time, and everyone will get ready for bed. So that's what's on the schedule. But here's what actually happens that day. When I arrive, I check in with the night staff to see how her time in the home went, and she tells me that Paige was tossing and turning all night, so she didn't get a lot of sleep and she might be a little bit tired this morning. But Rachel slept with just a lamp on last night instead of all, which tells us that she's feeling safer, and that's a really big deal. The night staff prays over me, the women, and the activities for the day. I turn on some worship music on Pandora and refill the wax melts so they can start the day with calming aromatherapy. At 8:30, we all find our favorite spots in the living room and continue our devotional on the fruits of the Spirit. And Rachel and Lauren have a really great discussion about needing more patience and what it actually looks like to ask the Holy Spirit for help throughout the day. The women join our health coach in our exercise room, and I can hear them laughing as they do a Just Dance video to warm up before they really get those healing endorphins flowing on the treadmill. Paige was really quiet during devotions, so when Rachel goes to meet with her counselor and Lauren takes a shower, I ask her how she's doing. She says she wants to cancel her doctor's appointment today. I know that it's just a regular checkup, but it might be a male doctor who has to be very physically close to her in order to do those routine tests, like check her ears, check her heart. And I tell her that it's okay to be nervous, and that I still get nervous when I have to go to the doctor. And I ask her what will be helpful for her to get through the appointment, and we brainstorm ways on how to bring her anxiety down from a 9 to an 8. After lunch, we have various programming like boundaries, alpha, or steps, which are tools that help the women with emotional regulation. I take Paige to her appointment, and we talk about what to expect on our drive there. Because we prepared ahead of time and brought her sensory bag to keep her grounded, she's able to make it through the appointment. And we celebrate by grabbing an ice cream cone on the way back to the house. At 4, we're supposed to meet in the kitchen for life skills, but Rachel is late. And I walk around the house and I find her still watching TV.
I remind her that we're all meeting in the kitchen, but she ignores me, keeps watching her TV show. So I go ahead and I turn the TV off, and she gets really mad at me. She yells at me, but I know that this outburst isn't my fault. It's because of the borderline personality disorder caused by her trauma. So it's not on me, and really it's not on her either. We're getting her to the place where she's more in control, but we have that understanding that it's because of the trauma and the way that it has altered her brain, and that's how she responds, or why she responds in that way. So I give her some space and let her cool down, and eventually she joins us in the kitchen for life skills, and we talk about food safety and the health benefits of Brussels sprouts. Anybody like Brussels sprouts? Wow, okay. So most of us are not excited to try Brussels sprouts. But we make a recommended recipe for supper, and turns out everybody likes it. And it becomes a regular, staple recipe on our meal planning calendar for the week. And that's a true story. We sit down for supper together like a family and show her what it should have looked like growing up, to have that family time to connect about your day, to just share a meal and fellowship over that, and then we clean up the kitchen together afterwards. From 6 to 8, the women have some free time, so Rachel returns to her TV show. Paige works on her internet safety homework, and Lauren asks to go to the basement because we need to get some more trash bags. I go with her because, like a basement, it's dark, it's got some shadows, and she can hear the voices and the footsteps of the women upstairs, and that can be a trigger for her. At 8 o'clock, we're supposed to do a craft for mindfulness, but the women are in a loud and goofy mood, so we clear out the living room and we do some karaoke. We sang our favorite Disney songs at the top of our lungs, and in that moment, I thank God for the community, laughter, friendship, and healing that's happening in that room. Later that evening, Paige goes to take a shower, and she asks me to stand outside the door while she's in the bathroom. So I talk about random things that distract her from the fact that she's in a very vulnerable place, and that's how she's able to take her shower without having a panic attack. I go back downstairs, and Rachel comes in from the backyard where she has had a rough conversation with her mom, who is the guardian of her children. She slams down the phone. I give her some time to herself, and then I go up to see how she's doing. She says she doesn't want to talk to me and that I need to go away. And I tell her, that's okay. Let me know if you want to talk about it later. The next morning, Rachel comes down and she says, I'm sorry for the way that I treated you yesterday. I was really mad at my mom, and I took it out on you. And I say, thanks for the apology. I forgive you. It's all good. I know you have a lot going on right now, and today's a new day. This is life at Wings of Refuge. Some of these examples may seem small, like making it through a doctor's appointment, taking a shower, or admitting fault. But the trauma that these women have experienced and the way it has altered their brain and ability to relate and interact with others impacts everything they do. And we want to help them get to the point where it doesn't control their day anymore. We celebrate the little victories that come in the wake of the struggles. We laugh, we cry, and we empower her to take back her life every day. So now we're going to hear in her own words a little bit about what life has been like since graduating from Wings of Refuge and living in her freedom.
I lived at Wings for about 2 years, and maybe about a year and 3/4 in, I was like, I know I'm ready to not be at Wings, and I don't need people to be around 24/7. Like I felt like I was safe and I wasn't gonna be a danger to myself or others. I had good relationships with people. I had learned how to have positive relationships and how to reach out to people if I needed something. I also didn't feel like my brain was going crazy all the time anymore, and so there's a peace. I felt a peace, and so I would say since leaving Wings, I'm thankful to say that that peace is still there, and like it's not that life is easy all the time, but and there have been challenges, but the coping skills and the things that I learned while I was at Wings and through the program have helped me to be successful now as just a normal, regular adult living in the world, working and doing all the adult things like cleaning my apartment and doing my laundry. The things that maybe are monotonous to most people, I'm just thankful that I have the opportunity to have those things and that I can do those things and not fall apart on a regular basis. And I live in an apartment and I have a dog, so my dreams have come true.
Do you feel like you're getting your own folder that you get to take out the door with you today? Her freedom story is the best part, and it's not over. There's one more video we get to view. But before we do that, I hope that you're understanding a little bit of that inside look at what it takes for her to carry her own story and what it takes for the people around her to help her be able to do that. Wings of Refuge has been an organization, a safe home, for almost 7 years. We've learned a lot. We've made mistakes, and we've had wins. We continue to learn how to support some of the most marginalized people on the planet. We do that with the help of the Lord. And one of the things that we have learned is that after she leaves Wings of Refuge, she still needs support. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, there isn't family to fall back on. And so, because of the things that we've learned, because of walking with survivors and seeing them do well in our home and seeing it be super hard when they aren't in our home, we have transitional living that we still, when they move to their apartments, they still get programming from us for as long as it takes. And what we have learned is now growing and evolving Wings of Refuge into opening a second home. We are on the verge of opening a transitional living center. This will be a place that when she is ready to leave that in like that cocoon stage of support where there's staff around her all the time, she'll have still the ability to live inside the Wings family, but to be more independent and to practice those things that she's learned in a more self-governing way. So, we are opening the Transitional Living Center. Inside of that Transitional Living Center, there will be 5 mini apartments where women will live and practice their independence. There will also be on the main floor a learning center, which we will get to treat the restoration home that's currently open more like a home. And those classes that you learned about will actually be held in the learning center. So we'll give them some separation of, and more real life of kind of going to school type of thing. So we are in the middle of opening that, and it is just a miracle. Youth Shelter Services of Ames had a shelter, and it had a fire in it a couple of years ago. And they approached us and said, "We have a gift for you. Would you like a 5,000 square foot burnt out building?" That did not feel like a gift. And it really didn't feel like a gift after I actually went inside of it. In the meantime, God is always working. He's working in ways that are so upside down to my thinking oftentimes. in the meantime, Kelly went and had a little speaking event, and somewhere in the process, there was conversation about that burnt-out gift that we were being offered. There was an executive director from Go Serve Global who performs disaster relief around the world, and his comment was, "We feel like human trafficking is a human disaster, and we think we can help." So because of the partnership in the kingdom of God with Go Serve Global, Youth Shelter Services, and Wings of Refuge, we took that 5,000 square foot burnt out gift. And it is becoming a beautiful place. Go Serve Global gave all of the donation of labor from gutting the entire property into drywall. Rich Leper Construction, that man has given what God has placed in his heart as an in-kind contractor to lead this project with volunteers and businesses around the state to make this home beautiful. And then a pandemic hit. This is a $400,000 project. The pandemic hit. We're not knowing what's happening, but I'm telling you that in the last 6 months, through a pandemic, without a capital campaign, derecho wins, this project is fully paid for, and it's almost finished. Yeah. That is because the kingdom of God is real on the earth as it is in heaven, and that is because God has the plan for lost daughters to come home, and we agree with him. So, this short video is going to give you a teaser to what the Transitional Living Center will be.
Standing in a zone for our new Transitional Living Center. It's a great day. Go Serve Global is here. Volunteers will be coming in this week. We're just super excited about what God has planned for the restoration of this home and then the restoration of the women who will live in this home. So God has gifted us this home, and we are super excited about not just the restoration of this home, but the restoration of the lives of the women who will live here, the volunteers who will be part of the project. We're super excited and thank God in advance for all the work that he's going to do in everybody's hearts as they become part of this project. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Please watch our Facebook page. We do a lot of updates on the home. There's an exciting opportunity October 20th called Night of Hope, and there's some possibilities to possibly see that full video after that. So if you don't like us on Facebook already, please do that and keep updated, because you're going to get to see the beautiful thing that it is. There's also going to be opportunities to help furnish that home through Adopt-A-Space at some point. So again, watch our Facebook page. If you don't have our newsletter, sign up to get our newsletter. You can do that through our Facebook or our website. But God is doing amazing things in the midst of the storm. And that home, every time I want to throw in the towel and God, this is too hard, that home and what God has done keeps reminding me, don't give up. I'm not done. I have more. So, you have taken in a lot of information this morning. It's heavy, and I just want to thank our committee for the courage to share the real story. Because oftentimes, as a team, we want to protect that story. We want to protect you from hearing the really hard stuff about that story, but they were really compelled that you need to know. And so now you do. What are you going to do with that story? As we were praying as a team this morning, the Lord just put the verse, I believe it's in Galatians, on my heart. It says, carry each other's burdens in the Lord, and thus fulfill the law of Christ. I think oftentimes we can get caught up in carrying the burden, but not in the Lord. And so as we are finishing up our time together, I want you to know that there is no thought in my mind that I can carry this story outside of the Lord, that you can carry this story outside of the Lord. And so I want to encourage you, as we are all learning to carry this story now, that we do it inside of the Lord. Psalm 91, why we named Wings of Refuge, inside of his wings of refuge. We don't do it in a place that we are the rescuer, that we are the hero of the story, or that we have all the answers, but we jump in to who Jesus Christ is and the finished work that he completed on the cross and the resurrection. And in that place, we are able, as kingdom agents, to carry the burden inside of him. And so I want to just release you to that, release you to join us in that. And so how can you do that? What can you do? I don't think everyone in this room or who's streaming online in churches and homes are called to come and do what the staff at Wings of Refuge does every day. Some of you may be, I don't know. But I do think we can do a few things. One thing I think we can do, and this is something that we can do to prevent anyone to ever have to come to Wings of Refuge. The number one thing that we can do is to love the Lord Jesus Christ with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our mind, and with all of our strength, and jump into who he is. The second thing that we can do to prevent human trafficking is to build strong marriages in covenant love and promise through Jesus, and through that build strong families and strong places and safe places, just like Wings of Refuge, where children can grow and flourish. Beyond that, because I believe that strong people who know Jesus, who build strong marriages, who build strong families, who build kingdom in their community, build strong communities, and strong communities can change the world. You can do what you can with what you have in front of you. And if you've messed it up, it's okay, because I have too. There is redemption possible. And so I want to just encourage you with that. You can do that so that hopefully someday there is a place not needed in the future for a place like Wings of Refuge. That would be a dream. But we all live in a broken world. We're being redeemed. We're being taken from glory to glory and strength to strength. Build strong sense of self in Jesus. Strong marriages, strong families, strong communities. You can do that to prevent human trafficking. But what can you do with us, with the mission that the Lord has called us to? Practice, pray, and intercede. This is a spiritual warfare battle. You have heard the stories from Mike and from the survivor. We need prayer and intercession on a 24/7 basis. Please pray. And worship the Lord in that place. Don't just pray against the evil, but worship God for the goodness and the good things that he's doing. That is the fuel that keeps Wings of Refuge going every day, is prayer, worship, and intercession. Beyond that, what can you do? You can give. There is a high financial cost to our society, to our world, when we decide that people can be bought and sold. It's expensive. It takes over 13 staff at Wings of Refuge, and that's a bare bones skeleton crew. It takes a functioning now 2 homes, and there's a financial cost to that. And so I invite you into the story to give. You will see either on your screen or at your table, there's a little brochure that says, "Give what you love." And this showcases how you can literally, through giving, carry her story. There are different aspects of programming, specifically what Kelly talked about, and look at what speaks to you. Is it the equine therapy? Is it the mentorship? If you listen to the survivor story, so much of what we said was relationship, community, and that is what we do at Wings of Refuge. Maybe that's what speaks to you, mentorship. Maybe it's that health and wellness piece, the Brussels sprouts. Maybe that's what really speaks to you. I don't know, but look at what speaks to you. How can you carry her story? By what you love and giving what you love to fight what we all hate, which is the injustice of sex trafficking. Our goal today was to raise $25,000, but as I was sitting here, I was just hearing let's do 27, like 27 million slaves in the world right now. Let's do $1,000 representing every million slaves in the world. I encourage you to pray. Don't give out of obligation. Give out of a joyful heart. This is an act of worship unto the Lord. Give generously. I have seen giving from hundreds of thousands of dollars as worship, or a little boy pulling out the change in his pocket and throwing it in. The Lord loves a cheerful giver. And our goal at Wings of Refuge is that every giver doesn't give out of obligation or to feel good about themselves, but when they give, it grows their relationship with Jesus Christ, and it helps them understand who they are in him. And so we invite you to give. If you are online right now, you can go to givebutter.com/Wings of Refuge. I believe even before this event started, there was over $5,000 in giving, which is amazing, and we are thankful for that. If you are here, there are little envelopes on your table. You can decide what the Lord has in your heart now, or you can mail that and go home and talk with your family and decide what you would like to give now. You can leave it in the little gift basket on the table as you leave. We just encourage you to give. Give joyfully. We can't do this without givers. We can't do this without intercessors. And we hope to alleviate the need for this by building strong communities, strong families. So we invite you into the joy of giving. We invite you to carrying her story in this way. Give today, but even more importantly, we need to keep our homes open in the long run. We need to grow and evolve into this transitional living center, and we need to be sustainable for years to come for the women that are coming home to Wings of Refuge. So we invite you to possibly consider one of these options and become a monthly giver by going to our website. We would love for you to join us in the fight and carry her story every month with us. If you have questions afterwards, we would love to talk with you. You can come talk to Kelly or myself. Carla is here as well, and she has a heart and passion, although she's behind the scenes. She has a beautiful heart. Everything that's beautiful about today is because she has a gift. Carry her story through giving. We need to continue this fight. And I think that the survivor who has bravely and boldly stood up in her freedom to share her story with you today can say it best as we end. So thank you for coming, and may you help carry her story as we end today.
The story's not over, but thanks to Wings, the story took a different turn than it would have taken had I not come to Wings. Thanks to Wings, now I can safely say I walk in freedom every day. Will you carry my story?
You unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemy, till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again to a family